I don't remember what we were laughing about, only the way her hand stayed on mine a little too long after the joke died. Her house was dim that night, the kind of soft yellow light that makes everything look warmer than it should. My best friend had gone upstairs hours ago, leaving his mom and me at the kitchen table with half-empty glasses of wine. She didn't seem to notice time passing, and I pretended not to, either. She wasn't trying to look younger. That was the thing. The lines near her eyes deepened when she smiled, and she wore them like truth. Her sweater slipped off one shoulder, just enough that she adjusted it once, then let it fall again. "Are you sure you're okay?" she asked. Her voice was low, textured, like she'd been talking for too many years to people who didn't really listen. "Yeah. I'm fine." She tilted her head. "You don't sound fine." I didn't answer right away. The air between us thickened with everything we weren't supposed to say. She reached across the table, fingers brushing the back of my hand, barely a touch, like she was testing whether she was allowed. "I mean it," she said quietly. "You can talk to me about anything." Her eyes didn't match her words. They weren't motherly or casual. They held something searching, something unsure. I looked down at the ring on her finger, simple, silver, faintly scratched, and wondered if her husband had noticed the distance growing in her voice the way I did. "I don't think I should," I said. She smiled, small and sad. "Probably not." The silence after that wasn't empty. It hummed. The clock ticked too loudly, the refrigerator buzzed, and outside, a car door slammed, sharp, real, pulling us back for a second. She looked toward the window, then back at me, as if choosing to stay in this small, dangerous moment. She poured herself another half glass. "You're quiet tonight. You talk enough for both of us." She laughed, and it broke the tension just enough to breathe again. But even her laughter had weight, like she knew it was the wrong thing to do. When she stood, her knee brushed mine under the table. It wasn't planned, but neither of us moved. The scent of her, citrus and something faintly smoky, filled the space she left. I caught myself tracing the rim of my glass just to keep from reaching out again. "Your generation doesn't look people in the eye anymore," she said as she leaned against the counter. "You always look at your phones." "Not always." "So, what are you looking at now?" I met her eyes. She didn't look away. For a moment, the whole room seemed to shift, too still, too close. I could hear the faint rhythm of her breathing, the sound of her ring tapping the counter. She looked at me like she was remembering something she wasn't supposed to miss. Then, upstairs, a floorboard creaked. She straightened instantly, pulling her sweater up to her shoulder. I blinked, and she was back to being my best friend's mom again, polite, composed, untouchable. "Get some sleep," she said softly, avoiding my eyes. "You've got work tomorrow, don't you?" "Yeah," I said, though I hadn't even checked the time. As I stood to leave, her hand brushed my arm again, maybe by accident, maybe not. Her touch lingered, just long enough to make me forget what I was supposed to say. At the doorway, I turned back. She was watching me, half lit by the kitchen glow, her lips parted like she'd thought of something but changed her mind. And then, footsteps on the stairs. She whispered, almost too quietly to hear, "Go." I did. But not far enough to stop thinking about her. The next morning, sunlight leaked through the kitchen blinds like it was prying into something private. I'd come down early, hoping to slip out before she woke, but she was already there, hair tied up, mug in hand, wearing a loose white t-shirt that made her look softer, younger. The same kitchen as last night, but quieter, sober. "Morning," she said. Her voice was gentler now, almost careful. "Morning." She nodded toward the counter. "Coffee's fresh." I made too much. I poured a cup, trying not to look at her too long. My hand shook a little, and I blamed the caffeine that wasn't even in my system yet. Her son's shoes were still by the door, a reminder of where I was, who she was. My best friend's mom. The line we both pretended not to see. She noticed me looking at the shoes. "He's still asleep," she said, a hint of something like apology in her tone. "He always sleeps late when he's home." I smiled. Some things never change. Her lips curved faintly. Some do. The way she said it made the air tilt again. I didn't know what to do with my hands, so I just kept holding the cup. The silence stretched, too long to be comfortable but too meaningful to break. Then, out of nowhere, she asked, "Do you ever think about leaving?" "Leaving? Town. The people here. The routines." She looked out the window. "Sometimes it feels like I blinked, and 20 years passed." Her confession came out almost accidentally, like she hadn't meant to say it out loud. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think about it." She turned back, studying me in that way that made me feel exposed, like she could see all the things I hadn't figured out yet. "You're still young," she said. "You should go before life starts closing in." "Is that what happened to you?" Her hand froze around the mug. "Something like that." For a second, she seemed far away, somewhere in a memory I didn't belong to. Then she set the mug down and moved past me to reach for something in the cabinet. Her arm brushed my shoulder. It wasn't much, but it burned like a secret. I stepped aside, but she stayed close, her breath touching my neck before she exhaled softly and moved away. We both pretended not to notice. "I should head out," I said, voice low. She nodded, though her eyes said something slower. "Drive safe, okay?" When I turned to leave, she called after me, "Wait." I stopped. She hesitated, her hand half lifted, fingers twitching like she almost reached for me. Then she let it drop. "You forgot this." She held out my jacket. I took it from her. Our fingers met, not a long touch, not enough to name, but enough to leave something behind. Neither of us moved right away. The sound of the clock filled the gap again, steady and indifferent. She finally said, "You can still talk to me, you know." I met her eyes. "That's what I'm afraid of." Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. Then, a soft, uncertain smile. And something unspoken passed between us, real and impossible to take back. Rain started that afternoon, steady and patient, the kind that makes everything smell clean but feels heavy in your chest. I hadn't planned to go back to her house. I told myself I was just returning a borrowed charger. But my car somehow ended up in her driveway again, engine ticking in the quiet. She opened the door before I even knocked. "You're soaked," she said, eyes widening. "Come in." Her voice was softer than last time, surprised, maybe, but not angry. She took the charger from my hand but didn't move aside right away. Drops of rain slid down my jacket onto the floor, marking the space between us. "I didn't mean to bother you," I said. "You didn't." She closed the door behind me, and suddenly the sound of rain on the windows filled the silence between us. We stood there too long. She finally sighed and grabbed a towel from the counter, handing it to me. "You'll catch cold." I smiled. "You sound like a mom." Her eyes flicked up, quick, sharp. "I suppose I do." Something unspoken shifted, the reminder of who she was supposed to be, who I wasn't supposed to look at this way. "Tea?" she asked, already moving toward the stove. "Sure." The kettle hissed, steam blurring the space between us. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching me dry my hair with the towel. Her eyes lingered longer than they should have. "I didn't expect you," she said quietly. "I didn't expect me, either." A small smile tugged at her mouth. "That's not an answer." "I know." Her laugh, soft, nervous, filled the air just as her phone buzzed on the counter. A message preview flashed on the screen. "When are we talking about this weekend?" M. She turned it face down without replying. The silence after that hit harder. I wanted to ask who M was, but it wasn't my place. She didn't explain, and that told me enough. There were things in her life already slipping, things she didn't want me to see. The kettle screamed. She shut it off quickly, like it startled her. When she handed me the mug, our fingers touched, warm, brief, dangerous. I felt her pulse jump through the contact. Neither of us spoke. The rain pressed harder against the glass, like it wanted in. She looked up, lips parting, a breath, a hesitation. Her face was close enough that I could see the faint scar near her jaw, the way her eyelashes trembled when she blinked. I shouldn't, she started, voice catching. I know. Her eyes met mine again. This time, neither of us looked away. A floorboard creaked upstairs. She froze, stepping back fast. The mug nearly slipped from her hand. Your mom's home? I whispered. She shook her head, too quickly. No. Just, the house settles when it rains. But she didn't look convinced. I could still feel the heat of her skin where our hands had met. She turned away, breathing slow, trying to calm something neither of us could name. Finally, she said, barely above a whisper, you should go before you stay. I didn't move. She turned back to face me, eyes wet with more than just reflection. Please, she said, but her body leaned closer as if pulled against her own command. We stood there, too close, too aware, until the air itself felt like a secret. And then, as if the house exhaled, the rain stopped. Neither of us did. For 3 days, I stayed away. No texts. No visits. Just silence, the kind that hums louder than noise. But Thursday night, she called. Not long, just, can you stop by? I could use a hand with something. I told myself it was nothing. A favor. A light bulb, maybe. But when she opened the door, the look on her face said otherwise. Her eyes were tired, not from lack of sleep, but from holding too much in. The house felt emptier than usual, even though everything was where it always was. Thanks for coming, she said, stepping aside. No problem. She led me to the living room. A lamp lay on its side, the cord twisted. It just stopped working, she murmured. I knelt to check the socket, but I could feel her presence behind me, quiet, close. The faint rustle of her sleeves as she crossed her arms. You didn't answer my texts, she said softly. I looked up. Didn't know what to say. That's not like you. I didn't know what was like me anymore. Her breath caught, just slightly. She knelt, too, on the other side of the lamp, mirroring me. For a moment we were both crouched in the dim light, the air charged with everything left unsaid. She said, I don't want things to get weird between us. They already did. A faint smile. Yeah. I guess they did. The silence that followed was alive, full of what we couldn't admit. I adjusted the plug, pretending to focus, but my heart was pounding. When the light flicked back on, it was too bright. Her face was close enough that I could see the reflection of the bulb in her eyes, small, trembling circles of light. She whispered, You shouldn't be here. I know. Then why are you? I don't know how not to be. She blinked hard, a tear almost forming but refusing to fall. You remind me of, she stopped herself, then shook her head. No. That's not fair to you. Say it. She exhaled, shaky. You remind me what it's like to be seen again. To matter. That hit deeper than it should have. Not because of what she said, but because I knew how true it was. I stood, not trusting myself to stay that close. You matter, I said quietly. She rose, too. Not like that. Exactly like that. The words hung there, too much, too late. Her hand came up, almost on instinct, brushing my hair away from my face like she used to do with her son when we were kids. But the gesture froze halfway, turning into something else: care, guilt, confusion tangled together. "Don't," she whispered. "Please. I'm not doing anything. That's what scares me." For a moment, she looked ready to say something more, to confess or end it, but the front door rattled, her son's voice, faint outside, "Mom? You home?" Her eyes widened. I stepped back, heart hammering. She turned toward the door, then back to me, caught between two worlds. "Go," she mouthed again, but this time her voice broke on it. I hesitated, just long enough to see the truth in her face. She wasn't asking me to leave because she wanted me gone. She was asking because she couldn't afford what would happen if I stayed. I slipped out the side door, the sound of rain starting again behind me. And for the first time, I didn't know if I was running away, or being set free. The next time I saw her, she didn't look like herself. It was 2 days later, at the grocery store, fluorescent lights, crowded aisles, the opposite of everything we'd been. She was in the produce section, standing too still, a basket hanging from her arm like she'd forgotten it was there. She saw me before I could turn away. Her expression flickered, something between relief and dread. "Hey," I said quietly. She nodded, swallowed hard. "Hi." Her voice was tight. Controlled. The way people sound when they're trying not to make a scene. I took a step closer. "You okay?" She hesitated. "We need to talk." There was no warmth in her tone this time. Just necessity. We ended up in her car, parked behind the store, rain streaking the windshield again, the same kind of gray silence that always seemed to follow us. She didn't look at me when she said it. "He knows." My stomach dropped. "Who?" "My son." I couldn't breathe for a second. "Knows what?" "That you've been coming around. That something's off." I leaned back in the seat, pulse racing. "Did you tell him?" "No." But I didn't deny it fast enough, either. The air inside the car felt too small, too heavy. I stared at my hands, knuckles white. "What did he say?" She laughed, a broken sound. "He asked if I was lonely." I said no. Then he said I looked it. Her voice cracked at the end, and she pressed a hand to her mouth, like she'd said too much. "I didn't mean for this to hurt anyone," I said. "I know," she whispered. "That's the problem." For a while, neither of us spoke. The rain filled the silence again, soft and relentless. She turned to look out the window, and I caught the reflection of her face, tired, wet-eyed, and real. "You can't come over anymore," she said finally. I nodded, but the agreement felt hollow. She turned toward me then, eyes glassy but steady. "You think this was about attraction?" "It wasn't." I frowned. "Then what was it?" She took a shaky breath. "You reminded me that I'm still visible. That my life isn't finished yet. And I think I mistook that for something else." The honesty hit harder than anger would've. "I thought I was helping you," I said. "Listening. Being there." "You were," she said softly. But it started to mean too much. The word settled between us, heavy, unfixable. A flash of headlights crossed the windshield, and we both flinched, as if the world had caught us in the act of almost saying what shouldn't be said. She wiped her eyes, laughing once, quiet and pained. "Look at us. Hiding in a parking lot, afraid of nothing and everything." "Maybe it's better this way," I said. "Maybe," she replied. But she didn't sound convinced. Her hand brushed the steering wheel, trembling slightly, and for a moment she looked like she wanted to reach for me, not to hold, just to apologize. But she didn't. Instead, she whispered, "Go before he sees your car." I opened the door, cold air rushing in. "Will I see you again?" I asked. She didn't answer. Just stared ahead, eyes fixed on the rain sliding down the glass, one drop tracing the same path over and over, refusing to fall away completely. I stepped out, closed the door gently, and walked into the storm. She called late, a soft knock on my door before midnight. When I opened it, she stood there, hood pulled up, rain dripping from the edge. She didn't ask to come in, just said, "Please, can we talk?" We sat in the front seat of her car again, the same spot where everything had almost come undone. This time, neither of us hid behind small talk. "I shouldn't be here," she said first. "I know." She gave a faint, shaky laugh. "You always say that." Outside, the storm gathered strength, branches tapping against the roof, streetlights flickering in and out. Her face glowed dimly from the dashboard, every line of her expression caught between courage and regret. She reached for something on the console but stopped halfway. Her hand stayed there, fingers curling in the empty space between us. "I keep thinking about how quiet the house feels after you leave," she said, voice unsteady. "Like it forgets to breathe for a while." The honesty of it broke something open. "I don't want to make your life harder," I said. "You already did," she whispered, not as blame, but truth. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. Everything unspoken between us pressed closer, the comfort, the danger, the impossible timing. Her eyes searched mine, and then she said it, "You reminded me what it felt like to be alive again." I didn't realize how much I'd stopped living. Her words hit harder than a confession could. I didn't move, but I felt the air change, heavy, full of the kind of understanding that's almost love but not quite safe to call it that. She leaned forward slightly, her forehead almost touching mine, breath warm in the narrow space. "If I cross this line," she whispered, "I can't go back to being who I was. Neither can you." I swallowed hard, my pulse loud in my ears. "Then don't." Her eyes closed, one tear slipping down her cheek. When she opened them again, something was clear in her face, a decision, or maybe mercy. She shook her head, barely moving. "We can't. Not like this." The words weren't cruel. They were gentle, tired, full of something deeper than refusal, care trying to survive itself. She reached up, brushed a raindrop from my hair that had followed me into the car. Her hand lingered for a second, then fell away. "Someday," she said softly, "you'll understand that letting go is its own kind of love." I nodded, unable to speak. We sat in silence, rain washing the windows clean, until it felt like the night itself was exhaling for us. When she finally started the car, I stepped out without looking back. The rain soaked through my clothes instantly, but I kept walking, the sound of her engine fading behind me, steady, final, but not cruel. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for her to call. I understood.